Hi everyone, welcome to my patio studio. I'm super excited to introduce this final project to you. This is making small scale models, and this is a really practical skill to have, especially if you're interested in doing large scale installation or just exhibiting work in a gallery space, and also if you're interested in doing large scale public outdoor pieces. Learning how to model things in small scale and visualize them in space is super important. So anytime that I am getting ready to do a show, the first thing I do, maybe the second thing, but very early on, is I make a model. And I just use simple materials, foam core, sometimes cardboard, depends on what the space looks like. And so I'm going to just quickly walk you through the last model that I made for an installation at Soil Gallery. I was trying to figure out how to hang a large quilt that I had made that I was going to have a projection on. It was meant to be a two-sided piece, so there was an experience on the front of the piece and also one around the back. And there were a couple important considerations I wanted to pay attention to. And so the model really helped me understand how big I could make the piece, what kind of framework I needed, and things like that. So I'm going to flip the camera around and show you the model. Okay, so this is the model that I had made of the gallery, and it was at the back half of the gallery space, and I believe the dimensions of that space were about 12 feet by 12 feet. So the entrance into that space was through this little point right here. There were two build outs that hid the bases for these retrofit beams, and so there were these really big heavy iron beams that are also part of the space. I didn't build those for my model. Another thing is there's a set of stairs that went into a back office area. I've blocked that off just so that it wasn't as distracting. So the idea was there would be a quilt hanging in the space, and I needed to figure out how tall of a structure I could build in there based on the lights of the space. I couldn't go too high up to the ceiling. I also didn't want to hang it from the ceiling. I remember from a previous install having to get a 12-foot ladder to get to the top to drill into concrete. And so I decided I needed to build out a frame in order to hold the quilt. So some of the things I was trying to figure out was how would you get a person to walk in through this space? And the front of the quilt was actually just white, and there would be a projection of a yellow circle on it. But I needed people to still feel invited enough to want to walk through the space and enter into the back, which would have a little bench, which you can see here, built to scale, and then even a little portable heater, which I built just to make sure it would fit in the space, and a little cord for the detail, and then also some of the things that you would see from the back side. So some of the things that I learned from this model was how wide this piece could go, because I knew that there were stairs here and I wanted to make sure that I had this ADA accessible. And so I drew these marks here to indicate the 36 inches that are required for entry points. So that helped me to kind of figure out the angle that this piece needed to be from the wall. So that was one really important thing that I learned. And it helped me figure out how much material I needed to sort of bring to the space. But I will show you some of the images of the actual install, and you'll see that the piece changed a little bit based off of this model. There was actually another piece that came straight out and it got built over there. I actually filled it in with wood. Once I got there, I realized this negative space was really distracting, especially from the inside. So I framed that out. And I also wanted a way for the viewer to enter into the space. So I changed this little strip with some pieces of wood, and there were quilts hanging on it, and I continued that around the space. And that was a sort of indicator to go in and then also back and around. So here is some documentation of what that front of the installation looked like. This is actually the back of the quilt that this yellow circle is being projected upon, but it is essentially the first thing that the viewer encounters as they see the piece. And then hopefully that strip of wood along the edge of the wall that had some quilts hanging on it would make people curious to come around back. And when they came around back, they would see this piece. And if they came and sat at the bench that was, you maybe just saw the little corner of the bench and they sat down, then this was the view that they would have. So the model served as a really great way for me to identify the basic build out of the space. I still had to make some alternate plans once I got there, but it was a really important factor for me in doing this install in a very quick turnaround.